So now that we've got the skin upgraded, now we're going to just start configuring the appearance of the site, because remember, this is what the site's going to look like when we're all finished, right? It doesn't look anything like agility necessarily, right? And this is what we're going to be moving the site to. So we're going to start with that next. And we're going to start by using the skin options to configure the styles. And actually, we're even going to start one other place. And that is, I have created an Agility CSS cheat sheet. Remember last week I talked about the Agility HTML layout cheat sheet. Well, now I've created a CSS cheat sheet. And I'm going to be referring to this regularly throughout the course of this class here today. So it's definitely something that's worth downloading and becoming familiar with, because we're going to talk about all of the different ways in which you change the styles or change the appearance of Agility using both its options, the skin options, and also the CSS. And it's not a small file, right? There's a lot of different parts to it. But this should help you identify the packages that are being used or the settings that are used to set colors and styles and that sort of thing. Okay, so having said that this is what we want it to look like, we're going to come back over here to Thesis. And we're going to start off with my Agility Nude options menu here. This is not something that most skins have. This is something that's unique to Agility. And it collects all of the font styles and places them in one section, so that even though Thesis really kind of scatters some of this stuff around various places and might even require you to create some custom CSS for it, I've collected all of it into one place to make it easy for you to set up. So we're going to start off with our typical font styles. And right now, Agility starts off with the typical font styles as Arial, but we're going to switch to Georgia for the typical font style. We're going to leave the typical font size alone because I like the settings for it as it is, so we're not going to change typical font size, but we are going to set the color, and the typical font color is going to be 242424, and the typical link color is going to be 247D00, and the typical link hover color is going to be 737373. Now that's if you know the colors, right? You can always just use the color selector and pick different colors, right? But I knew what colors I wanted, so I'm entering those numbers. Okay, so that's the typical font styles. Next is the site title font style. Now your site title is this thing right here, right? The Thesis 2 responsive skin. That's the site title. And what this illustration does is shows you what each of these settings adjusts, right? So the typical font styles, the site title font styles, tagline font styles, page heading font styles, and the sidebar font styles. The site title and tagline font styles I'm not going to use because I'm not using the site title and tagline on this site. So I'm not really going to bother changing those, but obviously you can set a font color, and you can set a font size, and you can set, a font family, a font size, a color, and a hover color, because the title is by definition a link. And you could do the same thing with the tagline. Tagline's not a link, so you just set its font family, size, and color. But we are going to change page headings. In our page heading style, we're going to leave the font family alone because it's going to automatically adopt the typical one, which will at that point be Georgia. And we'll leave the font size alone because I like the way it is right now, but I want to change the color. And I'm going to change the color to a red color at 701 A01. And in fact, I want to do the same thing with a subheading color. And in order to help you understand what the page title and subheadings are, this is the page title, right? It's the name of the page. It's the title that you put in when you create the page. And subheadings are headings that you create inside of the content of your page. And we're going to talk about how to create those in a later lesson, but this is an H2 heading. And so the H2 heading, H3 heading, H4 headings, those will all end up getting this color that I just set. Okay, so we've set those colors, and then the only thing left to do in this is to set the sidebar colors. And again, I want the sidebar font family to be Arial, because we're changing up. We're switching back and forth between Arial and Georgia. Those are the two that we're using. And I'm not going to adjust the heading font size, but I am going to adjust the heading color here. Oh, actually I am going to adjust the font size. I'm going to make it 24 pixels. And I'm going to give it that red color again, so that's that 701A01. And oh, look, I misspelled family. Well, that'll be update 1.03. I'll give you a chance to do an automatic upgrade for next week then. Okay, so our heading font family was Arial. Our typical font family will be Arial, but we won't change anything else. We're not going to change currently any of these other settings. We may come back at a later time and change some, but for the time being, those are all of our settings. And in order to apply those settings, you hit Save Agility Nude Options, and then you have to go to this Visit the CSS Editor, go over to CSS, and hit Save CSS. And once you've done that, now the styles that you've applied, which you can really just sort of barely see here, which is we've got our Georgia font here, really. It's just about the only thing you can see. Oh no, we've got Georgia font happening now inside of our menu as well. So that's just, oh, and our link is the gray and the green. So you can see those changes here. But since there's not very much text here, you don't really see too much of it.